Steven Stamkos is frustrated with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and this is huge news for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll get into that later on in this episode. But before we start, I just want to say that 874 of you guys aren't subscribed. We're trying to reach our goal of 1,000 before the season starts, so if you're enjoying this daily Leafs and NHL content, make sure to go and hit that subscribe button. But we'll hop straight into the first topic, which is Steven Stamkos frustrated with the Lightning. So a recent article did come out with Steven Stamkos. Tampa Bay Lightning captain Steven Stamkos said he is disappointed the team hasn't engaged in meaningful contract talks ahead of the training camp, with free agency looming next summer. To be honest, I've been disappointed in the lack of talk in that regard. It was something that I expressed at the end of last year that I wanted to get something done before training camp started. There hasn't been any conversation, Stamkos said Wednesday. I'm ready whenever. I guess that's something that I didn't see coming, but it is what it is. This goes on to Bruce Boy, the Tampa Bay Lightning GM, saying he needs to gather more information during the 2023-24 season before better understanding the team's roster going forward. I need to see how the pieces of the puzzle fit this year. I need to see who steps up and is ready to handle a bigger role. I need to see how the team's performing. I need to see how this season plays out before I make those decisions. After the season, once I've gathered that information, I can work with Steve and his agent on a contract structure that will be in the best interest for both sides. This is huge news coming out of Tampa. We've seen Steven Stamkos, who's been with the Tampa Bay Lightning his entire career. He's had career years. He's put up incredible stats. If you look at just last year in 81 games, he put up 34 goals and 50 assists for 84 points. Just the season before that, in also 81 games, he put up 42 goals and 64 assists for 106 points. If you go back and look a little farther, in 2011, he did score 60 goals, and in 2009, he did score 51. This is just insane news coming out of Tampa. This guy's been the captain of the franchise. He's led them to 2 Stanley Cups, and you can just tell from this interview itself how frustrated he is with this team. We seen back in 2016 when he did become a free agent, he did test the waters. Just in 2016, he did reach out to the Leafs reached out to him. Contract talks started during free agency. He ultimately did go ahead and sign with Tampa Bay Lightning again, but this makes you think on, does he still want to be a Leaf? We know this guy's from Ontario. At the age of 33, he is getting up there in age. But as you can see just from the past 2 seasons with the 84 points and 106 points, that he hasn't lost his game at all. You really look at this guy, he's a true leader. He wears the captaincy. He can score. He can set people up. He's a great face-off taker and just overall one of the league's best players, and he has been for quite some time. And this is really interesting with recent reports coming out that Toronto said that Brad Treliving may make a giant splash in an Eichel-sized deal was the exact quote. So if Tampa starts to kind of falter this season, they lost a lot of guys. They've lost depth. Guys are going to step up, but the team is slowly getting worse and their window's slowly closing. Does this make Tampa think, hey, we should move on from a guy like Stamkos? We can trade him at during deadline if the team's struggling. Or is this a situation where we kind of see with Toronto where he's wanting to get signed, but things aren't working out, so this may extend into next offseason? If that does, and a team like Toronto reaches out, show that they want to sign him, they make a far push into the playoffs, this is a guy that you can kind of sweep under the rug and just kind of pull in without a lot of teams noticing. Obviously, he wants to stay in Tampa. He's been there his entire career. But Toronto is a team to watch on this, which leads us to, can the Leafs make this work? When you look at the Leafs going into next season, this is next offseason's cap, you see that there is a lot of open spots. 3 left wings aren't signed, the right wing's not signed. They're missing 3 defensemen and goaltender Samsonov. So when you look at this, some notable guys missing are Domi, Bertuzzi, Nylander, Samsonov, Brody, a guy like Giordano, and a guy like Klingberg aren't really signed here. But this current cap right here would be $29 million in extra space opened up. So it kind of makes you think, can the Leafs afford Stamkos? Should they go for Stamkos? In my opinion, there's not a lot of times you see a guy like this hit the open market and you have a chance to sign him. The last big signing, especially the last big one for the Leafs, was when John Tavares came from Long Island, and he did ultimately sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you kind of look at this guy. He's a 30, 40 goal scorer. He can put up 100 points. Yes, he's getting up there in age, but this Leafs team with Matthews signed for just 5 more years, you have this window. you can sign these guys. If the Caps start to look bad towards the end of it, the Leafs they're famous for signing guys with a lot of bonuses at the beginning, so it just makes tradable contracts. If you can lock this guy up, you can run your number two center, you can slide Tavares to the wing, or vice versa. Or even if you wanted to go with a three-headed monster with Tavares slowly slowing down, you kind of get in the situation of having a guy where Matthews, Stamkos, and Tavares, where you can run these three guys. It would be by far the league's best center depth. And when you just kind of look at this again, Tavares and Marner are up at the end of next year. So a guy like Tavares at $11 million, if you can convince him that a guy like Stamkos is going to make this full push, you want to get him, you can convince this team. You could see a guy like Tavares take a smaller cap hit. Just if he takes a $9 million hit, then that would just be $2 million with the cap going up as well. And you keep going down, 8 mil would be $3 extra million. And you keep going and going. So you could kind of see the situation where you're seeing Bergeron take this giant discount in Boston. They wanted to do this final push before he retired. And you might see Tavares do this where you could lock him up for long term. It might hurt you and then. But with this window, the ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup. And a guy like Stamkos would be huge for the Leafs. I can't talk about it enough where you get a guy like this. You pick up couple extra defensemen. You might not be able to sign Nylander, but if Nylander walks and you trade off with Stamkos to keep this window open, I think that is a fair trade. If you can get both, that would be incredible. You could even go and get a guy like Sidorov in free agency, or you could trade for him. You have so many options with the $29 million. You do lose a guy like Domi or Bertuzzi. I don't think you retain both with this, but just overall, getting a guy like Stamkos just changes the Leafs' future. It would be an incredible ad if you can get him at a hometown discount, a guy to come in, a guy that can play special teams, a guy that can just score, win faceoffs, and just overall bring the leadership up in this room. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs would be crazy for not doing this. Which leads us to our next topic, which is comment of the day. The comment of the day comes from Patrick G. Mafia. He said, getting Hellbuck would be a massive move. I would trade Samsonov, Yarncrook, and young guys for Winnipeg for sure. I think the Leafs are going to be very active, especially with these teams, like I said before. Calgary, Winnipeg, it's just a couple of Canadian teams to keep an eye on. But Tampa is now a team to kind of look at. Is Stamkos going to get moved at deadline? Is he going to be just hang around? Are you guys going to make that final push? And the Leafs have this huge opportunity to sign a guy like this. Anyways, what's your guys' thoughts on this? Do you think Stamkos would fit the Leafs? Do you think they should stay away and just kind of build the score they have? Anyways, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. We love reading them. We're so close to 1,000. It means so much just for you guys subscribing, leaving comments. It just makes us happy looking at all this. Take care.